This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org, or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. My name is Melanie and I'm an exercise physiologist.
And my name is Kimberly and I'm a registered dietitian.
Hello, Kimberly.
Hello. How's it going?
Not so bad. Not so bad. Really excited to talk about our topic today. But before we do
Me
that,
too. Yes.
Before we do that, what brings you joy?
Yes. Okay. What's bringing me joy today is on the horizon. Next week, my husband and I are leaving for a little vacation to celebrate our anniversary. So I'm very excited for that.
Where are you going?
Little vacay. We are going to Hawaii.
Oh, what island are you going to?
We're actually going to Maui.
Oh, I love Maui. That's the best island.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? My husband's never ever been. So,
goodness. So you've been before?
It'll be fun. Yeah. Once, like 10 years ago. So it'll be fun.
I'll give you some tips after this episode because I
I
got
would
some
love
cool
it.
stuff for you.
I'll
Because I
take
went
it.
there like what 2020, like the end of 2023, so a little over a year ago.
Oh, I don't think I realized that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that was for my anniversary too. Believe it or not.
Fun. Love
But
it.
yeah, that's so fun. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it'll be fun. But what about you? What is bringing you joy today?
Well, so a friend of mine recently moved to Japan. So he's been over there for like the last 5 months or so.
Wow.
He's from Japan originally, so he has to come back to the U.S. to make sure he can maintain his green card status. And so he's going to be visiting for a few days, and we're throwing a little barbecue at a friend's house, and we're going to go celebrate him. And I'm making him the spiciest salsa I can because apparently things aren't spicy out there.
Oh my gosh. So he misses it. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be a good time. So that's part of our fun endeavors this weekend, and we'll see each other again. And it's cool. I can't wait though, because his wife still lives here. So funny enough, she works for Kaiser. And
no way.
Yeah, she's a nurse for Kaiser. So it's funny. We're like kind of coworkers. And I was like, wow, okay, well, she's waiting until she can retire, and then she's gonna go out there with him and retire out there, which would be kind of cool. But
that's awesome.
Still got her for another couple of years.
Yeah. Stuck with you for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, enjoy that and your spicy salsa. That'll be fun.
Yes. I mean, I'm making it really spicy for him. I don't know if I could handle it, but apparently that's what he wants. So give the man what he wants, you know?
Ask and you shall receive. Yeah.
Well, speaking of spicy salsa, this has nothing to do with that, but it has to do with your gut, which might be related in a way, right? What a segue.
Absolutely.
Oh, that was great. I need to keep that one. I'll put that on the wall.
Relish. Yes.
So, today's topic is about your gut. We haven't talked about this in like a little over 4 years. It's been a while since we've talked about gut health. And it feels like it needed to be revisited because there's a lot of buzz that's been going on around gut health.
Yeah, to your point, it's like a buzzword on social media or whatever, right? It's pretty trendy. There's a lot of supplements on the market for our gut health, right? So yeah, it's a good one. It's good for us to retouch on, I feel like.
Yeah. And like, you know, especially with the increase in use of like weight loss medications, like it's especially important to like pay attention to those types of things. That's another reason why I think it's gaining more popularity in the recent months / years. So, you know, it's worth it to chat about it because the gut is a complicated topic. It's not so simple as, you know, the gut is just your organs in your body. Like it's not just that simple.
It just digests your food and that's it. Right. Yeah. It is absolutely not that simple and straightforward. It is complex, just like the body is in general, but yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on these complexities?
These complexities. Well, yes, I do. You know, the reason why we say it is so complex is because our gut contains, for anyone who doesn't know, it contains what's called our microbiome, right? Which is where we have trillions of good, you know, bacteria, viruses, fungi, things like that we want living there. Okay. And by the way, when we say the gut, we mean your stomach, your small intestine, your large intestine, right?
Yep.
Like we're covering all of those organs. And that microbiome is a good thing. It is helpful for us. We just want to keep it, you know, balanced. We want to keep it energized, you know, fueled properly, et cetera, et cetera. And because well, I should say the reason why we want to do that is because our microbiome has such a powerful influence over different parts of our body and our health overall, right? Things like, well, digestion, obviously, but things also like immunity. I actually just learned that 70% of our immune system lives in the gut.
Yep.
That's a crazy high percentage.
Yeah.
As well as the microbiome influences our mood, right? So it has a direct connection to our brain, and can govern like different areas like behavior and things like that.
Yeah.
And then our weight too, and inflammation, all kinds of things stem from the health of our gut, the health of our microbiome. So that's why it's so complex. It's so far beyond just making sure it digests your food right, you know?
It's a symbiotic relationship. I always, like, when I talk about this with my classes, I always think about, you know, like those whale sharks that have those fish on them that like eat all the bacteria and parasites off of their bodies. That's our microbiome. It's a little fish that eats stuff for us. So
I'm like, ew, but yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but gross and cool. But it's so neat to me because it's this relationship we have with trillions of bacteria where it's symbiotic. Basically just means we do stuff that benefits them, and in turn they do stuff that benefits us. It's a friendly relationship. We have a hand in hand, like, yeah, we're good buddies. If we take care of it. That's the key here. Because as Kimberly was saying, the microbiome is complicated. It actually ties in with the brain. It's something we call the gut-brain axis, if you will, where it's basically like an information highway, as I say, 2 tin cans on a string. So you can talk back and forth from the brain to the gut and vice versa. And it does dictate a lot of how our body functions and works, which is why it's just such a powerful thing. It's like another organism essentially inside of us that we have to take care of. So why it's really super important is primarily the role for the microbiome is digestion, but digestion comes down to foods that we can't eat, but the bacteria can. So what people may not realize is, you know how you've probably heard like, hey, you need to eat a lot of fiber. Like fiber is good for you, fiber this, fiber that, right? Like you've heard this before. Everyone has fiber is good for us. It's because of your gut. Your microbiome, those bacteria thrive on fiber. That's what they eat.
Yes, that's their fuel source.
Yeah. We literally do not digest it.
Absolutely.
And that's what is kind of cool is the food you eat that you can't digest, the bacteria will for you, and it benefits them. That's that symbiotic relationship we're talking about. When they digest the fiber, then they promote certain types of things that break down in the system that help benefit us, including helping us feel better. They can help with neurotransmitters like serotonin, so that can help prevent like depression or anxiety. Not talking like clinically diagnosed, but at least like, you know, the you know, you're kind of feeling down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is a lot of evidence that shows that it can influence our weight.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just such a powerful organ, you know. I've heard it described as the second brain because it is so influential. And yeah, it absolutely plays a role in our weight and our metabolism, our hunger cues, right? How hungry we feel, the foods that we crave. I mean, the list goes on, how we store fat, right? I mean, like it's influential over something that's, you know, as seemingly simple as our weight and our metabolism.
Yeah. I can break it down probably a little bit further because I do a talk on the microbiome, but there's 2 types, like general categories of these bacteria. And we're simplifying this for the purpose of the podcast, but also recognize like it's definitely more complicated than this. But basically we have something called bacteriodeites or firmicutes. Those are 2 general categories of these bacteria. If you want to know which one's good or bad, think of it like a report card. A B is always better than an F. So bacteriodeites are the ones that we have hopefully abundance of. Those are the healthy, thriving, good bacteria that help us, you know, feel our best. Firmicutes, we do need some. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're bad. It's an easy way to brand them, but it's actually not exactly the truth. They're not bad. They have a job, you know, just because we don't like their job doesn't mean it's a bad job. But the thing is, those bacteria are the ones that tend to drive us towards eating stuff like junk food or high sugar items or high, you know, carby things or salty things, like stuff that's not always the healthiest for us. Those bacteria tend to drive us in that direction.
Right.
And I think the problem with it is if we eat a diet high in those items, it allows for them to thrive. And when they thrive, they drive cravings to get more of it. Hence the second brain.
Right. Exactly. And that just becomes harder for us to, I don't want to say fight, but like, you know, make a shift, right?
Yeah.
Kind of have some willpower to say no and change it. Cause our gut bacteria is literally like, but we want this.
Yeah. And it's powerful. Like it's very powerful. You know, sometimes they say sometimes those cravings may not be your brain talking, it's your gut. That's what they want you to do. And it's hard to fight that sometimes because especially if it's out of whack, which almost always the follow-up question from this is, well, how do I get it back in whack? Like, how do I fix this?
In whack. That's good.
I don't know. I just made that up. But, but like, you know, I'm sure you've heard this from your patients where they like, well, how do I fix it then? How do I stop this?
Yes.
What do you say?
100%. Well,
go get a transplant, get a new organ. No, don't do that.
Do a fecal transplant. No. The good news is we can change it. We can absolutely change the bacteria present in our gut, make one group thrive more than the other, right? And it really comes down to a couple different factors, but I mean, you guys know I'm a dietitian, so I'm going to argue that nutrition is going to be the most powerful influence, of course, because that's that's all about what we're putting in there, what we're fueling our body with. So I always say start with what you are nourishing your gut with, right? It's not necessarily, I mean, yes, don't get me wrong. There's definitely things that we have to cut out or make a change, but it's also what you want to add more of in there. So arguably one that we've talked about already, is fiber, right? We absolutely want to get fiber in there because that acts as the fuel source for the bacteria that live in our gut. And the B versus the F, right? Like we want them to have more of those thriving, right? So we got to get fiber in there. Your gut just loves it, and fiber in all forms. So for anyone who doesn't know, fiber is found in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and the whole entire bean family, right? Plants, exactly. We cannot find fiber in a lot of the staple, you know, foods here in the US, which is like meat, oil, dairy. We got to get plants in there. And I'm telling you, your gut just loves it. Beans, like find ways to incorporate, you know, sprinkling beans on a salad or make your own bean dip. We actually have a fabulous bean dip video on our YouTube channel, a recipe video. But yeah, we got to get that fiber in there to nourish that gut, start to make it happy.
Yeah. And I'll chime in too.
Yeah.
I'm not a dietitian, but I like to ferment things.
Yes. I was hoping you'd mention that.
So I have a fascination with fermentation. It may or may not come from the fact that my father is a winemaker and that they grew up around fermentation my whole life. Granted, it was not the same type of fermentation.
Science, though.
For the record, wine is not a probiotic. As much as you may want it to be, it is not. I
Good
wish.
disclaimer.
Neither is beer. Neither is any sort of liquor. But the main thing I want to say about fermentation is fermentation is like one of the world's oldest forms of preserving food outside of like salting stuff or putting stuff in sugar. Like there's just three kind of types of preservation. So salt, sugar, and fermentation, which fermentation almost always has a lot of salt in it anyways, because salt deters bad things from growing. And we're salty beings. So that kind of works. But the thing that's really cool is when you ferment stuff, it's that good bacteria similar to what you have in your own gut that thrives. So when you make stuff like yogurt or kimchi or sauerkraut, you know, anything that you ferment, that right there is going to provide an abundance of probiotics. So fiber, we would term it as a prebiotic, whereas probiotics are the bacteria themselves. So now what I think of it is like you're recruiting little guys to your army. You're helping your gut by recruiting more. You get more little guys in your gut. And there's a ton of different types of probiotics out there. It's not just limited to what I said, you know, like there's kombucha, kefir, you know, I made some fermented pickles the other day. Like you can make whatever. I actually have a fermented hot sauce going on right now. Fermented mustard. Like
nice.
I told you I ferment things. I was not lying. But there's a lot of stuff that is fermented that can really provide a lot of benefit in the form of probiotics. And so sometimes it can help by, I think of it like outnumber the bad with the good. So if you add more probiotics to your diet, ideally in the form of healthy foods, that right there can help shift the balance into a more favorable area and, bring things kind of back to normal, similar with eating lots of fiber, which some of those foods could be a high fiber probiotic like sauerkraut or kimchi,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so you're hitting on a good point, right? There's prebiotics. And I always like to say, if you see something like marketed to you, like high in prebiotics, it's just high fiber foods. So don't feel like
fiber.
you need to, yes, exactly. You don't need to spend extra money on supplementation or anything like that. Your body recognizes whole food, whole fiber better than it does anything that's been manufactured. So fix real food, real nutrients first before relying on something else. But prebiotics are what give the bacteria energy and fuel. Probiotics are recruiting more to your army, right? More to your microbiome. So that's often a question that gets asked, which I feel like is just a good distinction to note the difference between the two.
Yeah. And it feels so simple, does it not? Like, oh, just eat good.
Yes.
Weird. But it's really, this is going to lead into the next thing with the kind of some myth busting here. But I think it's worth mentioning that, there's a big industry out there in supplements that can convince you otherwise that you need to be taking things or doing specific things. Now, understandably, let's say you're lactose intolerant, or let's say that you don't like what kimchi tastes like, or don't like sauerkraut, or maybe, like one of the byproducts of fermentation is acid. So it makes stuff kind of tart. So maybe you don't like the way those taste, right? Like that's totally fair. Anything that's fermented will likely have a level of sourness to it. That's just what happens.
Right.
And I recognize some people like, ew, gross. I don't like that. And that's fair. What if you don't? Well, what about supplementation, right? So one of the things that has been, brought up before many times is probiotic supplements. And one of the myths out there is that everyone should be taking a probiotic supplement for gut health. And what do you think about that one, Kimberly?
Yeah, it's hard. I understand the desire because, like you mentioned, not everyone loves the flavor of something fermented, or, sometimes if you're not making it at home, there's not like copious options in the store either, right? You're kind of limited with your selection. So I understand the desire. Now, as a dietitian, you're always going to hear me say whole food over supplement because your body recognizes it better, absorbs it better, utilizes it better. Unless your doctor tells you otherwise, listen to your doctor. If they prescribe you a supplement to take, sometimes that'll happen if you're recovering from an antibiotic, right? Or maybe you have some kind of digestive issue or something like that. But to be honest, the probiotics in the form of supplement, the jury's still kind of out. Like do they survive digestion? Do they make it all the way to your microbiome? Is there a benefit there? It's not a magic cure for everybody, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I would encourage you, instead of relying on supplementation, try to get in some form of something fermented through food. And if you don't like the flavor, try to disguise it, right? Like you could throw a scoop of probiotic Greek yogurt into smoothie, right? Yeah. Throw some live active cottage cheese. That's what it's called when it's a probiotic cottage cheese. Throw it on top of a salad and then add some salad dressing, or like something of that nature so that you can maybe cover up some of the flavor of it for yourself, but try whole food first over supplement unless your doctor tells you otherwise.
Yeah. And always, of course, listen to your doctor first.
Right.
We are not doctors.
Exactly.
But that's a fantastic point. I couldn't have said it better myself, which is really like that. And, who knows if that supplement got overheated on the truck and it's just a nothing pill, right? Like who's to say? There's no regulation there. And it's not that they're trying to kill you or anything bad. It's just you have no guarantee that it's alive when you get it or if it's going to survive anything about it. So
exactly.
The main thing is you don't need to take the pills unless absolutely necessary or asked to do so by your doctor. There are things that are advertised, I see sometimes as well, like probiotic chips or probiotic bars. And I question that. And the main reason I do is knowing what I know about fermentation, and probiotics in theory, if they're in a food, would be fermenting actively unless they're in a refrigerator, which is slowing down the process, right? That's my understanding of fermentation from the most scientific level. Cold means slow. Now, I had a woman once ask me about some chips that were made from sauerkraut and they claimed to be a probiotic, and they're like chip form, which means they have been deep fried, which means they are no longer a probiotic, because when you put something in hot oil, it dies. So I had to ask her, like, well, does the bag slowly puff up over time and get really, really puffy? And she's like, no, it stays about the same. Like, then I don't think it's alive.
Yeah.
I think it's just a fried piece of sauerkraut.
Yeah. I think you're totally right. Because I've heard, I mean, to that point, I've heard similar things about like sourdough bread. A lot of people are hopeful that sourdough bread is
Guess what I'm making right now in my kitchen.
I figured you had some going. Yeah. I mean, I've heard that heat denatures, kills probiotic.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer thriving. It's better for us to get the sources that are, while maybe cold and slow, still alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like sourdough is such an interesting one, because I know what people are thinking, like, wait, sourdough?
I know.
We're not saying it's a probiotic. In fact, it is not, because heat, right? Heat kills. What makes it all fluffy and great is when it was at one point a probiotic, but is no longer once it is cooked. And do not eat raw sourdough starter or anything like that. That has the potential of having E. coli in it. So please, for all that is good in this world, do not eat it raw. That is a very bad idea. Actually, flour is more likely to give you salmonella than eggs. So do not eat raw flour either. Like, both bad.
Yes.
Cooked, fine. Raw, bad. So yeah, if you're thinking like, wait, raw cookie dough, yeah, definitely the flour is the bigger issue, not the eggs.
Than the egg. Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Because yeah, salmonella, E. coli, those are present in raw flours a lot of the time. It just is what it is. But what I will say is, you know, when we're coming down to picking like things that are probiotics, ideally, you know, refrigerated section is usually a good go-to. That's typically where you'll find stuff you can rely on being definitely a probiotic. Whereas, you know, again, if your doctor says take a pill, that's okay. But generally, if you don't have to, don't.
Hey all, it's Melanie. Looking for a simple way to stay motivated, healthy, and connected this summer? Summer's the perfect time to invest in your well-being. Join us for the Summer Seminar Series of Positive Choice, a season of free, online weekly classes that will inspire you to eat well, move more, and stress less. Each week from June through August, our expert instructors will guide you through fresh, practical tips on nutrition, fitness, mindfulness, and more. These virtual classes are a fun, easy way to stay connected, learn new skills, and keep your healthy habits on track all summer long, all from the comfort of your home. All summer long, all free, all online, all for your health. See the lineup and register online at positivechoice.org/summer. That's positivechoice.org/summer. See you then.
Now, let's do another one.
Yeah.
Another myth. You need a cleanse or detox to reset your gut.
Oh, I love this one, especially just because, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen it, right? Like if you're on the internet in some capacity, you've seen someone who swears they've done some kind of cleanse or detox that has just transformed their lives. Like their bloat is gone. They lost 70 million pounds, right? Like they just like the benefits go on and on. There is no actual scientific proof that cleanses or detoxes actually benefit our gut, flush out any toxins that they're claiming to, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So what's great about the human body is we actually have natural detox systems built in. Okay. Our liver, our gut, are all natural detoxifiers. There's no special anything, that we have to implement otherwise to help us detox in general. And in fact, sometimes they can actually be harmful, right?
Yeah.
They could like dehydrate you or maybe even upset your microbiome, right? Which is a precious thing that we want to keep healthy. So I would just say straight up, no go on the cleanses and the detoxes.
we would say that regardless of whether or not this is about the gut anyways, like don't do that.
True.
That's like, I always laugh when people are like, oh, I need a detox. I'm like, you have a liver. That's
You
what it does.
do.
That is the job of your liver, is to detox your body.
Exactly. It makes me wonder if they really mean like sometimes people, I think, use detox as a justification to eat unhealthy food. And then they want to like detox, get it out of their system.
Flushes it out of our system
right,
or something.
Exactly. Without the negative stuff kind of staying in. So maybe if you feel like you need to cleanse or detox, maybe you should just make a shift in some of your food choices, you know, have more fiber, have some probiotic, right? Hydrate. But let your liver do its job.
Your body doesn't like hold, like, you know, let's say you're eating junk food. It's not like hold on to that junk food and like make you crummy for 3 days. Like it does what you could eat a vegetable or a junk food and it doesn't really matter. It's going to pass through your body the same way.
Right.
The other effects of it could be like it's junk food. So there's problems there, but there's no detoxes. There's no amount of detoxes on this planet that will flush your system out like you think it is. And in fact, some detox, especially like there's detox teas you can buy or detox supplements you can buy. They're just laxatives. And so this flushing out that people think is happening, it's either a diuretic or a laxative making you flush out stuff from your body because they want you to think something's happening, but in fact it is not, right? Yep. It could be a bunch of magnesium in there, which is a natural laxative when eaten in abundance. And people don't realize that sometimes. And then all of a sudden things are coming out quickly. Magnesium.
It feels like it's doing its job, but it's strategic marketing.
It is. And it's frustrating because, you know, if you know how the human body works, and I will say this and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. If we needed detoxes, how did we survive 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago? They didn't exist then. How do people survive then?
Yes, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. A good point.
You know, think about that one. I mean, yes, like they did die younger then, but disease was a thing. So, you know, that's a whole other thing. You know, like clean yourself is a good idea. Okay, so this one's a fun one. So this is a big topic right now, actually, in general, which gluten and dairy are bad for your gut health. Myth or not?
Okay, also such a good one because you're right. It's quite popular, I would say. And a lot of people, from my experience, I don't know about you, but are almost self-diagnosing, like that these are things that are bad for me or my body doesn't respond great to it. I need to cut them out. So the truth is, unless you have some kind of condition, right? Unless you have celiac disease or a wheat allergy, unless you have lactose intolerance, there's no need actually to cut out gluten or dairy from your life, really. Gluten is found in whole grains. Okay. So technically when we cut out gluten unnecessarily, we could actually be missing out on some beneficial vitamins and minerals. And then dairy, especially fermented dairy, right? Like we're talking about the probiotic and stuff like that. That can be beneficial for your gut microbiome, gives you some vitamin D, which it seems like everyone's lacking in these days, regardless of where you live and how much sun you get, you know, which we need to be paying attention to that too. But long story short, unless you have been diagnosed with something specifically regarding gluten or dairy, you do not need to actually cut those out. They are not bad for your gut health.
Yeah. And I think, you know, another dietitian who works with us, Carrie, had brought in a study for a research share a few years back that said, like, there's actually studies indicating that people with lactose intolerance can still consume fermented dairy products. Because of the way it breaks down the lactose as a fuel source when it ferments.
Ooh, that's so interesting. I love it.
So more about fermentation next.
So good.
But it's just very interesting, you know, like, all these little myths that they have out there that I just, you know, where did that come from? You know, why are these around? And I think, you know, social media is probably a big chunk of that. It's unfortunate, but, you know, people can kind of say whatever they want. And if you have enough in the audience, they'll believe you. And that can be problematic when it's not necessarily true. And so when it comes down to some of these myths, if you're worried, you know, like you can always talk to a doctor. They can run an allergy panel on you and determine if you have anything or anything like that. But generally speaking, probiotics are pretty safe and easy to consume, and they're not going to be problematic at all. And they're definitely going to benefit the gut.
Absolutely. And that's something to keep in mind too. You don't need to eat like cups upon cups worth of probiotics. I mean, there's benefits in just having a couple tablespoons, you know, so we don't need to drown ourselves in them, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, the general consensus here is, you know, you're probably picking up on this, eat a healthy diet, you know, whole grains, beans, all the beans, fruits and veggies, like all that good stuff, anything with lots of fiber. But also like, if you can get fermented foods in there too. And, you know, this our country, the United States, we're not we're not as big on fermented foods as a lot of other countries. You know,
Right.
going to Japan, a lot of things are fermented in that country. Like they do a lot of fermentation, and a lot of Asian cultures in general do a lot of fermentation. It's very, very popular and common to do that. And it's a big staple of their diets. Whereas here it's kind of almost unheard of. Like we don't do that. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So thankfully, you know, the United States is a melting pot. We got a lot of different cultures around here. We have access to a lot of things you can't get in other countries.
Right.
So, you know, we got kimchi, we got sauerkraut, we got miso and tempeh and natto and kefir and like all these foreign sounding things because they are. And they're all probiotics and they're all very beneficial for the body.
Yeah. 100%.
Now, another thing that's important to note too, which, you know, things that could be worthwhile to mention here. So variety is key. Something we didn't mention with the supplements, but is worthwhile in mentioning is variety. We also want to have variety in the foods we consume too. So I know some folks are really much like I do, my standard, I got this, this, and this, and I'll eat that every day for the rest of my life. And like, that's fine and dandy, but just like everything else in the world, variety really does add a lot to our bodies. I mean, it really benefits us.
I totally agree. And that's actually, so like a special shout out to anybody, including Melanie, who ferments their own food. That's what's cool about when you ferment it at home, you're not getting the exact same strains of bacteria every single time. It's different and it's in different ratios. Like every time you get it, it's a different thing. So there's so much benefit to making it yourself at home, which is cool. Now, don't get me wrong. If you can't or won't, I have not ever done that. I get my probiotics from the store. We're getting more of the same bacteria strain, right? And less variety. So don't get me wrong, there's still benefit in that way. But I mean, when you that's like a cool way to get in some copious amounts of variety there, is home fermenting. But yeah, variety is so, so important in diet in general.
Oh yeah. And it also goes for probiotic supplements too. So like if you are in a position where you're going to be taking one, obviously you should listen to your doctor and take what they recommend. But, you know, some people just say, well, I still want to take one. And like what's an issue with that is some probiotic supplements out there can really monopolize the gut in the sense like you're getting one or two strains. We have trillions of different types and you're getting like one or two and a lot of them. So you can kind of monopolize the gut and actually make it out of balance in the good bacteria sense of things, which is problematic. So that's another reason why variety can be really beneficial. And, you know, just the different types of foods provide different benefits for the body anyways. So, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, another one that I find kind of interesting is that stress can disrupt the gut. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I feel like it makes sense because sometimes stress manifests in so many different ways for us, right? But yeah, I believe it. Educate us.
Well, it goes back to the gut-brain axis, the gut-brain connection, right? So things are talking back and forth from the brain to the gut. And there's a lot of hormones and neurotransmitters and chemical messengers and things that are just working constantly. And when we start getting stressed out, we release a couple of hormones. One of them being cortisol. Everyone knows about cortisol. And also adrenaline. That's another byproduct of stress.
Yep.
And what ends up happening when we're stressed out, there's not a true understanding of why this is the case, but some people can either slow down digestion or their speeds up. So slowing down, you can feel less hungry, it can lead to constipation. You know, a lot of problems can occur when your digestion slows down, or if it speeds up, you can have diarrhea, upset stomach, like it goes the inverse. And when things are doing one or the other, those are two extremes that neither lead to good outcomes.
Right.
And so, like some people have these issues when they're anxious, for example. Like I know, like anxiety for me, I have no appetite. Like I am just nothing. Right. So it can really affect the digestive system pretty much heavily impacts the digestive system in one way or the other. And when we are stressed out, it changes the diversity of our gut, which basically it reduces those quote unquote good bacteria and it increases the quote unquote bad bacteria. So those firmicutes we were talking about, lousy, they start to proliferate and really have a good time. They're starting to party like, oh, hey, this is a really unhappy condition that we should not be thriving in, yet we are.
Right.
And this can lead to inflammation and gut issues and just general discomfort within the gut because, you know, shifting of those bacteria. So if you're under a lot of stress, you're already shifting your gut microbiome into an unfavorable side. Another one that also can be problematic is it reduces your immune system response. We talked about how 70% of it's housed in the gut.
Yeah.
And when your immune system doesn't work as well, you can increase the risk of inflammation, infection, and also just in general, the levels of stress, right? So physically being stressed out. And one of the things that can be really helpful with this then is just to be mindful of your stress, manage it as best you can. Like, it's not just about eating sometimes when we talk about managing our gut health, I think, because we've talked a lot about like probiotics and fiber, but like if you're really stressed out, that also messes with your gut too. So managing your stress is a big factor here.
Yeah, I love that. And to your point, I love the bringing up that, it's about what we nourish our gut with, but there's other lifestyle factors that are influential too, right? So actually, there's been studies done that some of the healthiest people with the healthiest, most thriving guts are actually athletes because of how active they are. So exercise is something that can really help boost your gut health, and also is a positive coping mechanism to stress. So there we go.
Yeah. And like, exercise can be a really great way to maintain and manage stress. Like that's a really good way to do that. But like something I didn't mention with stress is it can cause something, which is it's questionable whether or not this is a thing, but leaky gut, I'm sure some people have heard of, where your intestines become more permeable. Everyone has a level of permeability within the gut. Like our intestines have a level of it, but it can be excessively so if we find we're under chronic levels of stress. But by exercising, it actually strengthens the gut barrier and prevents that from happening as much. So that is one aspect, as well as reducing systemic inflammation, because that's what exercise is very much known to do. And on top of that, it helps with, improving our digestion, making us feel better, like all the good things that come with exercise. I always talk about exercise, but like, there's all sorts of good stuff. It also helps things move. Like people don't realize this, but exercise helps things move through the digestive tract more efficiently.
Yes, I talk about that. I'm like, your insides don't want to move if you don't want to move, right? Like that's what one of the coping mechanisms, I don't know, not cures, things that can help you prevent constipation is moving your body. But it's fascinating.
Yeah. And of course, stay hydrated. That's another one.
True that. Yeah, absolutely. Stay hydrated.
Making sure you're drinking enough fluids throughout the day. Because of course, like constipation is a lack of fluids. Also, for the record, the more fiber you consume, fiber is a water sponge. So you definitely need to up your fluid intake to make sure that does not happen, or else you will get constipated. And that is
fabulous thing to note. Yeah. So as you increase your fiber, first of all, do it slowly. Don't like dramatically increase it all in a day or two. Do it slow and increase your hydration as well.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's about that time.
We covered a lot. That went fast.
We can keep going. But we have to stop. We have to stop. I'm sorry. I have to work on my sourdough. I really do actually have to do that. But with that being said, the main thing that if we take away anything from today, as far as the gut is concerned, is try something gut friendly this week, some sort of gut friendly food. Yes. Maybe that's your goal. Because, little things start to add up. And if it's like one probiotic you're adding into your week, that's fantastic.
Great.
Make sure you're moving, make sure you're hydrated, like do all the things you need to do for your health, manage your stress and so forth. But know that everything that you're doing to help yourself be healthier is also in turn helping your gut too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And everything we're talking about is self-care, right? Like just prioritizing ourselves in baby steps in different ways and throwing in there positive coping mechanisms to stress, right? So that we can all the more allow our gut to thrive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with that being said, thank you all for listening today. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to comment below. But with that, until next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.